do a little more. In the first page, we'll do a little kind of, you really have to look at the source sheets and see the psukim or the sources. The second sheets will just be kind of hashkafic thoughts. So number one, on page one, it's an interesting connection between Maimed Har Sinai and the pasuk in the Megillah, in that both use a singular term to describe what the nation did with the same thought, that they were united. So the famous pasuk in Yisro, which says Vayisu Mirfidim, so there it says Vayisu in the plural, Vayavo in the plural, Midbar Sinai, Vayachanu Midbar, that's when they arrived at Har Sinai. Vayichan Sham, you should have said Vayachanu, right? By Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged, they were unified. So they're referred to the nation, 2 million people are referred to in the singular. And then you cross over in the Megillah, chapter 9, when they describe that after the miracle occurred, that they were saved from Haman's decree, and Mordechai and Esther sent out a letter saying, so they celebrated. And then after that, Mordechai and Esther sent out letters saying that, well, we're going to make this an annual event. Vekibel ha-Yehudim. Now that's not grammatically correct. Vekiblu ha-Yehudim, right? Vekibel ha-Yehudim, again in the singular. That the people accepted to have Purim as an annual holiday. Who in their right mind would refuse to have Purim as a holiday? I mean, I think of other holidays that you may vote, well, I'm not so sure, but Purim, that's, no. But they accepted it. And what I found interesting was that what unified Bnei Yisrael in their approach to Har Sinai was that Vayisu Mirfidim, because in Fidim is when they were attacked by Amalek. So it was Amalek's attack, because when, as you know, as we see even nowadays, and we've seen many times in our lives, when things are good between ourselves, we don't always get along, you know. But when there's an outside attack on us, we tend to unite. So Amalek's attack at Refidim made us unite. What made us unite at the Purim story? Again, Amalek's attack in the form of Haman. Now it's interesting. When we're united, we're closer to Hashem. That's just the way it works. On Shalosh Regalim, what brings us closer to Hashem, when the Beit HaMikdash was up, is we would visit the Beit HaMikdash and bring korbanot. So the korban, karev, brought us closer. On Purim, what brings us closer to Hashem? Mitzvot ben Adam l'chavero. Mishlach manot, matanot levyonim, seudah, right? So Purim is a very much ben Adam l'chavero holiday. In fact, matanot levyonim, there's a whole analysis of it. Is it a regular mitzvah of tzedakah? Like on Purim, there's also a mitzvah, but it's no different than the rest of the year. Or no, it's a unique form of tzedakah. Because we want to both achieve and display extra unity. Achva v'rayut. Because we're all one family. And that is not just a hashkafic statement, but it translates into halachic. Because the rest of the year, when somebody comes to ask you for tzedakah, you're very much allowed and very much justified to check his credentials. Right? A lot of times they'll come with a letter from a rabbinical credentialing, right? But you're allowed to say, okay, what are you doing? What are you collecting for? Like that, or checking him. And you'll have to do. On Purim, the halacha says, whoever comes to you on Purim, you have to give. You're not supposed to check credentials. Maybe he's cheating. Okay. Maybe he's lying. Fine. On Purim, it's a unique form of tzedakah. You're not supposed to ask him, can I check your credentials? Why? Because on Purim, we're all one family, right? So if Uncle Harry asked you for tzedakah, you wouldn't say, but what are you collecting for? I mean, you may not want to give it to him because you never liked Uncle Harry, but when we're family, we don't check for credentials. Number two, just a kind of, this is not so important, but it's interesting. Just know, many times in the Megillah, it'll say Shushan alone, and sometimes it'll say Shushan Habira. Now, we're used to the word Bira, meaning capital city. So we'll say, okay, so sometimes it says Shushan alone, and sometimes it'll say Shushan Habira, Shushan, the capital city of the Persian Empire. So that's a mistake, which I used to make until I learned this. In the Megillah, Bira does not mean capital city. In the Megillah, Bira means the palace. Shushan sometimes refers to the city, which is huge, and sometimes refers to the Achashverosh's palace. When you see Shushan Habira, it refers to the palace specifically. When you see Shushan, that's the city. So some examples. The fifth pasuk of Megillah. Achashverosh made a feast, the famous feast. Beshushan Habira. He did not make a feast for the whole city. There were thousands and thousands of people living. There could have been 50,000. Who knows how many people living in Shushan, the capital city. He made the feast in Shushan Habira. It was a feast in the palace. Okay? Bira, not the Shushan, capital city. Shushan Habira. If you look then to the left, in the second chapter, Ish Yehudi Aya b'Shushan Habira. There was a Jewish man. Doesn't mean that Mordechai lived in Shushan, the capital city. No, Shushan. Mordechai had an office in the palace. Mordechai was a very high officer, and he lived in the palace, or had an office in the palace. But Ish Yehudi Aya b'Shushan Habira refers to the palace. And then you have a pasuk that has both of them, right? In Megillah 3:15, Haratzim yatzu dechufim bidvar hamelech v'hadas nitna b'Shushan Habira. The law, the decree, was given in the palace. And then v'hamelech v'haman yashvu lishtos, they sat and they drank. V'ha'ir Shushan navocha. The city of Shushan then was in mourning, meaning the thousands of Jews who lived in Shushan, the city, seeing Haman and Achashverosh drinking together, they felt they were finished, right? Because if Haman and Achashverosh are in cahoots, then they were finished. Just one interesting note. Mordechai, so we know Mordechai is a Hebrew name. But Mordechai, the origin of Mordechai is not. Mordechai was his Persian name. Persian, just like Esther was her Persian name. See, we're so used to Esther as a Hebrew name, but Esther was her Persian name. Hadassah was her Hebrew name. Mordechai was his Persian name. Bilshan was his Hebrew name. Bilshan. It comes from Baal Lashon, because Achashverosh, Mordechai knew 70 languages, which is pretty dramatic and pretty amazing, but that's because he was a member of the Sanhedrin. Every member of the Sanhedrin knew 70 languages. That's pretty amazing, right? Okay. Now, just small point, but I think I found it very interesting, so I'm sharing it with you. I think I've told you in the past, that's always a dangerous thing, because what's interesting to the speaker may not be interesting to the listeners, but the speaker doesn't find out till afterwards when somebody says, oh, that's not very interesting. So in the Shoshanas Yaakov, at the very end of Shoshanas Yaakov, I'm in 3 now, it says, Begam Charvona Zachor L'Tov. Charvona is remembered for good. Why is Charvona remembered for good? Because in the Megillah in chapter 7, when Haman comes to Mordechai and he comes to Achashverosh, and he thinks Achashverosh will do whatever he wants, and he wants to really get rid of Mordechai. But then, because of events that turned out not to Haman's liking, Achashverosh decided to do away with Haman. So Charvona, who is one of Achashverosh's officers, it says there in chapter 7:9, Vayomer Charvona, echad min hasarisim, one of his officers, gam hinei ha'et asher asa Haman leMordechai. Oh, by the way, Haman put up a tree. So there's a quick solution to what to do with Haman. Just hang him on the tree. And Achashverosh says, hey, great idea. So Charvona zachul lato. So there's a medrash that says that this wasn't really Charvona, that this was Eliyahu Hanavi. In disguise, just as appropriate for Purim, in disguise as Charvona. What drove the Medrash to say that, right? So again, when you and I read the Megillah, it's very different when Chazal read the Megillah, because they look at every letter. We not necessarily do it. What drove the Medrash to think that maybe this wasn't the real Charvona, there was a real Charvona, right? In the first chapter of Megillah, right? On the left there, I'm in number 3, when we're first introduced to this character Charvona, they list his 7 sarisim, his 7 officers, and Charvona is listed as one of them. But do you see a difference between Charvona in 110 and Charvona in 7:9? It's spelled differently. The Charvona in 110 is an aleph. 7:9, it's a hey. Oh, come on, right? As Rabbi Yulin said, what's the difference? Charvona, when you ever have a name or something that's similar, it's the exact same name, but if it's aleph and hey, you can end it aleph and hey, it would sound the same. If it's an aleph, that's the Aramaic. If it's hey, it's the Hebrew. So when we're introduced to him, it's the Aramaic, right? Charvona with an aleph. How come it's spelled with an hey at 7:9? So this closed the medrash. Maybe this wasn't Charvona, the real Charvona, the officer of Achashverosh. Oh, is that who can disguise as anyone? Eliyahu is very good at disguising. So it must have been Eliyahu. And that's why Zachul Latov. We're talking about Eliyahu. So that's pretty interesting. Okay. There are 4 mitzvahs. Number 4. There are 4 mitzvahs on Purim. Only one of them is done at night. In fact, what's surprising is, not only is it done at night, we also repeat it. So I can see, so you can look at it both ways, right? The Megillah is only the other 3 mitzvahs, Mishlach Manos, Matanos Levyonim, so that you cannot do at night. It's not as if I'm very busy tomorrow, so let me do my Mishlach Manos tonight, or I'll do my Matanos Levyonim. Let's have the Seudah tonight, because I'm very busy tomorrow, right? So you can't do that. You're not yotze those mitzvahs at night. You have to do it during the day. A Megillah, we do at night. So the way I look, you can ask the question from both directions. Okay, so why do we do it at night? We have to do it in the day, right? Because the mitzvahs you have to do it in the day. So you have to do it. So why do I'm going to do it in the day. So why do I have to do it at night? Just like the other 3 mitzvahs. I don't do Mishloach Manos in day and also the night before. Or you can do it if for whatever reason you choose to do you Chazal chose to do the Megillah at night. So why are we repeating it? It's the same story. What, you think I'll forget the story from 12 hours ago? So it's curious that we read it twice. So the Gemara in Megillah deals with it. And there's an Amoraic Machlokas. Everybody agrees you have to read it at night too. By the way, the main reading is in the day. The mitzvah reading is really during the day, meaning if for some reason you can only make one reading for whatever it is, make it be very marked to do it during the day, because that's when the real mitzvah is. So why at night? There are 2 Amoraim who give different psukim from different chapters in Tehillim to show by a remez, not explicit, right? I mean, David HaMelech wrote Tehillim. David HaMelech lived around 500 years before the Purim story, right? So if he's writing anything that with Purim in mind, it's b'nevuah, which is okay because David had nevuah. He had nevuah, or Ruach HaKodesh, whichever, but he could do it. So one Amora says, Rabbi Shimon Levi says, look at Tehillim 22:3. It's a chapter that starts with Ayeles Hashachar, talking about dawn. And then in the Pasuk 3 says, number 4, Elokai Ekra Yomam. Right, God, I call out by day, Velo Sa'aneh, and you're not responding to me, God. Velayla, and I also call out at night, Velo Dumi Ali. And I'm not happy. I find no rest. So this refers to a person is in trouble, and he's crying both at night and day, meaning all the time. And he's frustrated. Now, you should know that chapter 22, according to Chazal, if you read any parish on Tehillim, they felt that David was writing this for Purim. And Ayeles HaShachar refers to Esther. The Gaon of Vilna, read chapter 22 of Tehillim as the Shir Shel Yom of Purim. That's how strongly he felt that this is connected. So you see when you read Purim, you see that it's recommended. It's not a din, it's not halacha. It's recommended that you recite chapter 22 on Purim of Tehillim. So Rabbi Shimon Levi says, you see, recite by day and by night. This is a remez, since we're in the chapter that deals with Purim, that you should read the Megillah, you should read the story of Purim day and night. Again, it's a remez, right? Ula says, look at chapter 30, which we read every morning, is a Mizmor Shiur, as the beginning of Pesukei Zimmer, the one before Baruch Shamar. Laman yizamecha chavod v'lo yidom, Hashem Elokai Elokam odeka. The last pasuk of chapter 30. Laman yizamecha chavod. Chavod here does not mean honor. Chavod here refers to the soul. So that my soul might sing to you, and they say that's by day. V'lo yidom, and it will not stop. It will continue at night. Meaning again that this is a prayer. Laman yizamecha, sing out in prayer, both in day and night. So Ula says, this is a remez that you're supposed to read the Megillah day and night. But both the Chazal, already starting with the Magen Avraham in the 1600s, and the Rav Soloveitchik popularized this for our day, that the Megillah reading is a form of prayer. Not only is it a historical reading of what happened, and we should know what the miracle was, but it was a form of prayer. The prayer is that just like Hashem saved us then, when we were in dire straits, Hashem should save us now, whenever now is. Okay? And there's a Maimar Chazal that says that if a person prays and he doesn't feel he's answered, he should not take the tack that, well, I guess Hashem doesn't want me to have what I'm praying for. No, just pray again. And again. And again.
Anyone bring in the, reading night and day for the Mitzvah. The whole idea that for us, the day begins at night. Like after Shia. So it's like, to start the day we're to start.
Right. It's a good point. But I guess you could say that if Purim has mitzvot, right? So with that kind of thinking, you should say I should be able to do Mishloach Manos at the Seudah also at night, because the day begins at night. And yet we can't fulfill those mitzvos at night. So these are daytime mitzvos. So in the Megillah, so you have to like really search why dafka do we read it at night, right? But that's a good point.
See.
Now, by the way, just that this idea that pray day and night. So really, what it comes down to that is our Megillah reading at night. If you look at it as a form of prayer, is a commemoration of the actual situation in real time to the Megillah story, to the Purim story, because they were praying day and night, because they were convinced that the end is here, because it did not look good. Haman was in full control, and he had Achashverosh's backing, and the letters had been sent out. So it did not look that there was a way out, and the Jews were praying day and night. So reading the Megillah day and night really is a commemoration of that prayer day and night.
At night, strictly for the rabbis, it's rabbinic, right? Strictly rabbinic.
Day two.
I think that day, it's on a hard battle, it's at night. I didn't say there's the beginning.
The mitzvah of Megillah is the Kabbalah. It's from Nevi'im. So you're absolutely right. It's on a higher level than a Midrabanan, lower level of Midoraisa. So it is Kabbalah, right? But my understanding is that it's a higher level during the day, and I mean, the way I said high level, it's meaning midin. You're supposed to do it during the day, is because the mitzvahs of Purim are daytime mitzvahs. So it's really, you're not supposed to do it before sunrise. But the Eved your Yotze after Alos HaShachar, after dawn, but really you're supposed to wait till sunrise. The question is, are you Yotze Megillah if you only listen to it at night? Probably. It's hard to say. The other three, there's no question you're not. Right? But let's go to page 2. So page 2 has seven thoughts, which are very basic. I don't think this is going to be anything new, but it's just a good review as we're learning together. Then 2 trivia questions and 1 humorous play on words. Number 1, Purim, lots. So again, I remember last year I pointed out that it's strange that we would name a holiday after something that our enemy did. Haman drew lots. Oh, so let's name the holiday Purim. We usually don't do that. We name our holidays after what the Jews did or the Jews experienced, not what Haman. So gave one answer that the word Purim does mean lots, but it also means to annul, lahafer. But the other answer is that Hashem transformed Haman's lottery, whereby Adar was to be our blackest month, into our happiest and luckiest month. We say at night after the Megillah reading, there's a very long chapter. We only do this at night, a very long chapter. It starts with Hasher Heini, that Hashem prevented, right? Haman's plot. So at the end of that, we say Kippur Haman, the lot of Haman, Nehepach, was transformed Lefurenu. Low battery. Okay. Nehepach Lefurenu was turned. Haman's lottery was transformed into our lottery. Right? So that's what we call a Purim. And Haman's was convinced that Adar was going to be our blackest month, and we were convinced that's going to happen too. But it turns into Mishnichnas Adar Marbim Besimcha, and Chazal tell us that when we transact business, we should try to do it on Adar because it's a very mazeldik month for us. Right. It's already a bad month. One. Right, yeah. Because he never went to yeshiva, yeah. Right, absolutely. That's exactly right. Sure. It doesn't look like it's being charged. I don't know why, but is it the right one? No,
There
yes,
you go.
thank you. Takes a woman. Takes a woman to push the right button. Number 2. The greatness of the Purim miracle is the time and place. What I mean by that, the time. We were still in Golus Bavel. By most reckoning, right? The Golus Bavel was 70 years, it was 70 years, and Purim probably took place in year 67 of that exile. So we were still at a time where we felt very disconnected from Hashem. Our temple had been destroyed. Hashem banished us. There was Hester upon him. Hashem was hidden. So it wasn't like we weren't at a spiritual high. Plus the place, we weren't in Israel. We were in Persia. We were in exile. So both from the point of view of time and place, it wasn't a likely time for a miracle to happen. So the greatness of the miracle is that it happened in Persia during an imposed exile. And the greatness was that we learned not only are we going to be saved, but that our relationship with Hashem was not broken. It had greatly weakened, but it wasn't broken. And a beautiful thought is number 3. At Shachris, we say Ava Rabbah, right before the Shema. Shachris is morning, sunrise, the sun is shining. It's when things are good. At Mariv, when it's dark at night, things often metaphorically are not good. We say Avas Olam, that the Ahava of Hashem is eternal. At Purim, we didn't deserve the Ava Rabbah because we weren't so good. That's why Haman's decree. But the greatness of Purim is we discovered that Hashem's love was an Avas Olam. 4, at Purim we realized Hashem is involved in our daily lives. Meaning because we saw that things were happening and we didn't realize it. Everything that was happening initially didn't look good. But with hindsight, we realized that Hashem can remain hidden. Like, God, look at what's happening. Are you there? Because it doesn't seem to me like you're there. Or if you're there, it doesn't seem to me like you care. Like you care. Can you please get involved? And we learned that even when Hashem is behest upon him, that even when Hashem is hidden, he's still obviously able, but he still orchestrates events for our good. So in real time, if you live there, things looked very bleak. But the miracle of Purim is that it took hindsight to realize that Hashem was there with us all the time. That could be the whole idea of Ad Lo Yada. We often don't know and often don't understand as things are proceeding the connections. It's very hard sometimes to connect the dots and come to a knowledge that is good for us. It's only with hindsight that we can then connect the dots and say, oh, so that's what happened, and that's what happened, and that's what happened. And then we can understand. Number 5, Rav Nachman in the Megillah, in Maseches Megillah, he holds that we're obligated to say Halom Purim. As you know, we don't say Halom Purim, and the Gemara deals with why we don't say Halom Purim. But Rav Nachman believes that we're obligated to say Purim, but just the obligation of Hallel is fulfilled with the reading of the Megillah. As you read the story, you cannot but thank Hashem and praise Hashem for everything that happened. So just like the Purim miracle was concealed with the natural ordinary events, there was no splitting of the and there were no 10 plagues. The halal is concealed within the reading of the story, within the reading of the Megillah. 6, the classic v'nafachu. A lot of times things were planned. The planner felt he was in control, and things worked out the opposite. 1, Haman goes to Achashverosh one night to get approval to hang Mordechai, yet he ends up leading Mordechai in a horse to the streets of Shushan. The furthest thing from Haman's mind is that where he was going to be that night, right? Haman builds gallows to hang Mordechai, yet those same gallows are used to hang Haman. Haman recommends to Achashverosh to kill Vashti. At that time, he thought this was a great plan. And yet, that created a void, because now there was no queen. So it allowed Esther to step in. And Esther was the downfall of Haman. So, right? The Seudah commemorates, number 7. Seudah commemorates the feast in which Vashti was deposed. Right? The very end of chapter 1 of the Megillah. And that again opened up the opportunity for Esther. The Seudah commemorates Esther's 2 feasts, which brought down Haman. You know, she invited Haman and Achashverosh to one feast. Then when they came, she said, "Oh, you know what? I'm not ready. Let's have another feast tomorrow night." The second feast is when she revealed her secret and she pointed out of how evil Haman really is, and the miracle happened. And the Seudah also rectifies our involvement in Achashverosh's feast. As you know, Chazal deal a lot with, one of the opinions is, why did we deserve this terrible decree and many months? Because Haman drew his lot in Nisan for Adar. So that whole year was just a terrible year for the Jews, awaiting annihilation. So it wasn't just that the food was not kosher, or not kosher at all. That's a problem. That's a halakhic problem. But the Jews' participation in this feast was terrible, because the feast celebrated. Everybody knew, even the non-Jews knew, that the intent of the exile was for 70 years. But there was a question of exactly when did the 70 years start. Achashverosh miscalculated. He miscalculated by 3 years. And even though it was really the year 67, we're going to be in exile for another 3 years. Achashverosh thought this was the end. This was 70. It ended, and nothing good happened to the Jews. They weren't redeemed. They were still Achashverosh's subjects. So he threw a feast. It was a celebratory feast that the exile had ended, and the Jewish God was nowhere to be seen. So it was celebrating basically the demise of the Jewish nation and their connection with God. And we went to that feast. It's like, right? It's unbelievable, right? Now, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure or whatever. I'm not casting any aspersion, but the thing, so we participate, to rectify that, we participate in a feast on Purim to celebrate the eternality of the Jews, that the Jews are eternal. Much easier to say, that the Jews are eternal, right? So that gives a whole different meaning to the Seudah, rather than just, a drunken, pass the hot dog. Has tremendous value, the feast. Okay, 2 trivias. Who killed it? Number 8. Who killed his wife because of his friend, and his friend because of his wife? So it's not difficult, but it's just clever word. This is not mine. I got it from a trivia book, but it's just cleverly written, right? Who is the Achashverosh? Achashverosh killed his wife Vashti because of his friend Haman. In that chapter 1, he's called Memuchan. And his friend, then Achashverosh, killed his friend Haman because of his wife Esther. Okay, so it's just cleverly written. How many years did Esther hide the fact that she was Jewish from Achashverosh? Sometimes we lose track of the timeline of the Megillah story. It's over 9 years. It starts with the 3rd year of Achashverosh's reign and ends with the 12th year of Achashverosh's reign. Esther is picked as a queen relatively early Megillah story in the chapters. But so if you look at this trivia book, I found this question. So it says 5 years, not like for a few weeks or months that we would think kind of 5 years. She hid this, that she was Jewish and that she was an Israelite, right? Why do they say 5 years? Because the Psukim in the chapter 2, it says Vatilakach Esther, she was taken Bishnas Sheva in the 7th year Lemalchuso, right? And then she reveals Bishnas in the 12th year, towards the end, in the 12th year, so 7th year, 12th year. But I don't think 5 years is the right answer. Right, I'll just tell you. Right? I think it's 4 1/4. Okay, I know we're quibbling, but I'm just saying the reason is because the Megillah tells you what month each one happened. The Megillah tells you that she was taken as a queen in the 7th year of his reign in Teves. In Teves. And when it happened with the story with Haman is Bishnas in the 12th, it was a Nisan. So Teves, so Teves in the 7th year to Teves in the 11th year is 4 years. And then Teves to Nisan is 3 months. So I think it's 4 1/3. But the point is that it's 4 or 5 years that she kept a secret. That's a long time not to tell your husband that you're Jewish, right? Or to be able to hold out, right? Like that. And then I thought a very, very clever and cute, humorous play on words. Why do we give out so much tzedakah on Purim? The Megillah says that this holiday is called Purim because of the poor, the lots that Haman drew. Therefore, we give lots to the poor. Okay. Always good to end off on a smile. All right. Thanks for listening. Oh, we have to bench. Thank you.